I'm about to bust. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was the bathroom. Oh, good.
All for nothing at all.
Hello, my fellow enthusiasts. Welcome back to another video. Now, I'm not going to waste your time here, as I'm sure you saw the title. As many of you know, I ended up making a video a couple months ago detailing, at least from my limited perspective, the troubles of not safe for work creation. It was a rather short video, and I felt as though I got my point across relatively well given for what it was. And though many of you actually had many good things to say, a couple of interesting responses caught my ear, and not in a good way. So for those of you who either haven't watched the video, or at the very least just can't recall it perfectly, my basic argument was that these individuals should be paid for their work, as at the end of the day, they are creating something of value. The ability to create their art and express themselves, I feel, should be protected and never should be stomped upon lightly. With me believing that them being able to do this is a slippery slope, and if they are able to just censor and remove whatever they felt like and we did not hold them to a standard, then it could quickly go downhill for everyone involved. However, due to the fact that this is the internet, obviously many people disagreed with my points, with many people actively arguing that not safe for work content is immoral and addictive and should not be part of society, nor should the creators be part of society. And in fact, many ended up just actively dismissing the argument entirely by calling me, you, and basically everyone who agreed with me as the basic term of gooners, which was kind of funny if I'm being honest. But at the same time, this is not a mature way of going about it, as it isn't the porn itself that is the problem, it's the active restriction of expression that is the major issue. So I decided to basically collect all of the arguments made against me. I collected 6 in total, with these seemingly being the most common arguments within the comments section. I'm going to be going over the data over each of them, and all of the sources will be right there in the description for you to read personally if you do not trust my own words. So with all that being said, let's begin. First off, one of the very first arguments that are quickly made against not safe for work creators, as well as my video, was that not safe for work was inherently immoral and addictive and thus should not exist because of that. And to be fair, it is a rather compelling argument, at least in terms of its moral implications. In the context of this argument, you are basically looking at not safe for work content as a drug, which in that particular context, it makes perfect sense for a person to actively fight against it, because unless you're a criminal, you probably don't want actual drugs going through your neighborhood or in any part of the world. However, where this argument begins to fall apart is when you actively believe that something is a drug when it inherently is not. Not safe for work is significantly more nuanced than that, and at the end of the day, it is significantly more similar to that of social media or watching a very good movie. In fact, the FHE actively possesses statistics regarding not safe for work consumption as well as actual porn addiction. And though many do in fact partake of pornography, one thing you need to understand is that the amount of people who actually become full-on addicted is incredibly low. Within the article, it says that 70% of men who took the survey actively said that they have consumed porn at least within the last year. And out of that 70%, 11% of them actively believe that they had some level of porn addiction. However, it also mentions that it was slightly skewed due to the fact that these surveys also took part in more religious areas, as well as having a couple other modifiers, which I will put right here. And obviously, I've been focusing on the male statistics because they're a little bit higher. However, you do also need to realize that female statistics are even lower than what I've just been talking about. So in reality, even though an incredibly large amount of people who do in fact consume not safe for work content, actual addiction is incredibly low. Another thing you have to understand is that even when you include the sheer amount of people who are consuming it, as well as even addiction, it is still significantly less destructive than other substances. And no, I'm not bringing this up by going by the horrible logic that due to the fact that this other thing is so much more evil than this one, this obviously makes the other thing good, because that's silly logic. I'm bringing it up because there is a clear showing of hypocrisy happening here. Let us take alcohol, for example. It is the most addictive thing in the US, with 10% of everyone being addicted to it. And unlike when it comes to not safe for work, it actively harms your physical body. Every single individual who drinks alcohol is damaging their body. In 2022 alone, there was over 100,000 deaths linked to alcohol alone, and an additional 13,000 due to drunk driving. Cigarettes, as well as just nicotine in general, have led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if you include additional statistics. And I apologize if I sound a little upset, but you need to understand, these people are actively willing to just crush these individuals' ability to express themselves in a way that is completely harmless to the average individual, and is actively allowed between two consenting or more consenting adults, which at the same time, they are perfectly fine with these other individuals basically destroying society with their addictions, causing the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions. That is hypocrisy on the highest level. But moving on from that very poor argument, we have another argument, which was the idea that not safe for work creators shouldn't be allowed to get paid for what they do. Now, I'm going to keep this particular segment brief because it is incredibly, and for a lack of a better word, silly. Because as much as we may not like it, one thing that is incredibly apparent is that our economy and the things that are allowed to make money is not based on morality. Even though I just talked about how it basically is not the case, let's assume that the creation of not safe for work is inherently evil and that it should never be made. If we apply them to that very restrictive standard, we then have to apply that exact same standard to every other business. And I've already mentioned the tobacco as well as alcohol industries, but if you really want to go deeper, you can talk about all the clotheslines that actively go against all workers' rights and go to other areas within the world in order to avoid such rights and treat their employees terribly while basically paying them nickels on the billion. However, once again, with this argument, despite it being so common, they also have a tendency to never actively advocate for the dissolution, or rather the discontinuation, of these very powerful, very profitable, and very evil corporations. Once again, it is hypocrisy on the highest level. In fact, I would go as far as to say that it is an active injustice that these people are actively just praised or not even talked about, but the individual creating their art are somehow demonized even more so. But in order to save us some time, I'll go ahead and move on to the next subject. The next argument was that not safe for work creators are directly responsible for their own censorship. Specifically, the argument was directly due to the fact that some children end up interacting with this kind of content when they definitely should not be. However, my argument is rather simple. It is not the not safe for work creators' responsibility to censor themselves. It is entirely a failure of supervision on the child's parents' part, or their guardian, or whoever is responsible. Even knowing this, the vast majority of not safe for work creators whom I've interacted with already have the proper tags. They understand what it is that they are creating, and they actively make it so that minors do not show up, and they even ban them if they ever find out. Even so, the vast majority of large websites, including those that allow not safe for work, have active safeguards and parental controls that can be set up to ensure that children do not interact with such profiles. However, even with that in place, the vast majority of individuals who utilize Wi-Fi and internet do not actually supervise their children whatsoever. And as much as many people like to think the contrary, the internet is not a place for kids. This video is not a place for kids. And at the end of the day, it requires supervision from the parents' part if they do not want their children to interact with such things. If they are incapable of giving such supervision, then they should not be giving their children electronics. It is that simple. The safeguards are already in place. The creators are actively advocating themselves and advertising themselves for full-grown consenting adults to consume their content. It is not their responsibility to censor themselves. That is entirely the parent or guardian's responsibility. And even then, there is once again a form of hypocrisy here. Because even with these safeguards in place, you are still given various advertisements from tobacco and alcohol industries detailing how their product is good and there is no way to truly remove these advertisements from the individual without having some kind of filter as in an extension or add-on. We have already gone over how alcohol and nicotine are significantly more dangerous to children, and despite that, they are fully capable of advertising with basically no restriction. And by the time of me recording this, there are literally hundreds of thousands to millions of kids who drink semi-regularly from ages 12 and up. Once again, hypocrisy. It is hypocrisy of the highest level because these exact same people still are not arguing against these things that are just the norm now. If you are going to hold these individuals to this standard, you have to hold everyone to this standard. That is basically how it has to work. Otherwise, we are all just hypocrites and are holding people to impossible standards. With that being said, let us go to the next argument regarding not safe for work. The next argument, and personally one of my least favorites, was the argument that if they are so talented, they should just do safe for work content if they want to get paid. Now, the reason why this is personally one of my least favorite arguments is due to the fact that it is entirely missing the point. Many not safe for work creators do, in fact, make safe for work content to be paid. Hell, the Invincible trailer from just a few years ago was actively made by a not safe for work creator who was directly behind the production of Maxine, as well as the Peepoo Doo show. Where the problem lies is that this sets up a very bad precedent regarding the argument. Even if it doesn't say it directly, this argument is basically saying that no, you shouldn't be paid, and on top of that, these people should have complete control over what you can and cannot make in order to make money, even when it is perfectly legal and does not hurt anyone involved. Remember, these individuals are filling a need. They would not be getting paid if there was no demand for the content that they produce. And even though many do like to make safe for work, they should not be boxed in and forced to do it when it is fully legal for them to do what they are actually passionate about. And just deciding to do something else does not fix the problem. The problem here isn't the fact that they're not allowed to produce the porn that they like. That's not what the problem is. The problem here is that you have companies, people, and industries that are actively stopping them from doing something that should be entirely legal for them to do. And just getting them to do something else doesn't fix that massive problem. But finally, we come to the near end of this video, and I'm not going to lie, this particular argument, this is probably going to take the largest portion of this video out of all the ones I've covered thus far, because it is the most massive section, the biggest problem that a lot of people just do not see, and I didn't see it myself when I made my previous video. Many argue that it doesn't matter if Patreon actively restricts them because they can just go somewhere else, and unfortunately, I have to tell you, no, they can't. That's the problem. Now, in order to understand this, you need to understand something else, which is that the internet and everything in it is monetized in order to keep everything going as per usual. And one of the major downsides of this is that almost every single website has to rely on a payment processor. This is basically the thing that allows websites to actually have transactions without it basically becoming a jumbled mess. Problem here is that all the good ones basically have a major monopoly. There are only a couple of decent ones that actually are worth using, and the problem is almost all of them are incredibly discriminatory against not safe for work creators and sex workers. These processors include things such as PayPal or Apple, as well as many others, and due to this, you can't just go to another website because chances are that website will also rely on these payment processors, which have their boot on the website's neck. If they are not happy, you as the website creator don't get paid, and if you don't get paid, the website can't keep going. Now, certain websites, specifically those that allow pornographic content, have a tendency to also rely on advertisers in order to keep themselves afloat. The problem here is that these advertisers don't pay anywhere near as much as the big hitters, who just so happen to also be a part of the exact same businesses that handle the payment processors. This creates a very bad setup for them because basically all of the places that they are allowed don't allow them to make enough money to sustain themselves, and the places that do won't even allow them to set foot there. You can't just go someplace else because they own everything else, and you can't make a new place because you'll have to rely on them in order to keep that new place running. This is why it's such a major thing that we hold them accountable for all of this nonsense, because if we don't and we allow them to just do as they please, then things will quickly unravel for everyone, not just them. So, some closing thoughts I have on this is that I really want you to just take a moment and think about everything that I've said, and that these people, at the end of the day, are people who are just trying to do what they love and aren't actively trying to hurt anyone in doing so. Not safe for work is not as evil or dangerous as it seems. It is a part of society that must have a space within it. It is up to us, the consumers, to decide how much we consume of it, as it is not the creator's responsibility to do so. For that is one of the choices given to you. I personally believe that we should look at not safe for work creators as what they are, working citizens who simply want to do and make money off of the things that they personally enjoy. Now, I won't sit here and say that every single creator is moral, or that I agree with everything that they create. However, they possess the right to create and express themselves in any way that they wish, for as long as it does not hurt the individual. I will make this video as many times as I need to if it means getting the message across. This is not a porn issue. This is an issue of freedom and the expression that such freedoms allow. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please take an actual moment to think about everything I've said. Thanks so much to my patrons, and for everyone else, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye.